After 9 months of fighting, a new birth for Mosul. Iraq's leader declares victory over Daesh, but how will the government now deal with the challenge of rebuilding? I'm Imran Garta, and today's newsmaker is Iraqi Prime Minister Haider al-Abadi. They were triumphant scenes, a long time coming, as Iraq's Prime Minister toured Mosul to announce its liberation from Daesh. And it's a victory that's come at a huge cost. What was once a thriving city is now a devastated shell. Thousands have been killed and around 1 million displaced. And the fight against Daesh is not over, with several Iraqi towns still under their control. While this defeat is undoubtedly a major blow for the terror group, is it more symbolic than strategic? As the fight and the world's focus now moves elsewhere, what will the future hold for Mosul? The UN estimates it'll cost at least $1 billion to rebuild the roads and restore clean running water and electricity to the city. And many wonder whether the battle has exposed or even exacerbated sectarian fault lines. How will the city's underlying grievances be addressed? And what will be done to stop the return of Daesh? For all of Abadi's bravado, there's been no recognition that he and his forces bear some responsibility for losing control of the city in the first place.
In honesty, I've come to Mosul today to follow up on our victories and the eradication of Daesh, which we are in the final moments of doing. Daesh fighters have chosen to be besieged because they had been given two options in the past: surrender or death. Most of them chose to die. They didn't choose surrender except a small number, but others were killed. We have no other option for Daesh fighters if they don't surrender besides death, and we have done that. Most Daesh fighters in Mosul have been killed, and what we have left now is a small number. I will leave some room for the heroic armed forces to complete this action, so we can announce victory soon, God willing.
Well, to discuss all this, I'm joined now from Washington, D.C. by Ismail al-Sudani. He's a retired brigadier general with the Iraqi army and also a former Iraqi defense attaché to the United States. So thank you very much for joining us. How important is this moment for you?
For me, it's very important because Iraqi army has successfully liberated Mosul, the strategic or the monumental city for the caliphate when they claimed their caliphate back in June 2014. And that's really significant for everybody in Iraq because what has happened in June 2014 was really desperate and makes the nation on the brink of the collapse. And restoring the confidence on the Iraqi security forces to rely on itself with the help of the coalition and the other nations to kick ISIS out of the Iraqi territories completely. Although this is not the final phase to eradicate ISIS, in my perspective, ISIS will stay longer than after liberating Mosul because the most important phase is the government should have prepared multi-pronged strategies to follow up and pursue Daesh or ISIS in their hideouts and the places where they came from.
Yeah, and I want to get into some of the root causes in a few minutes. But first of all, let me once again sort of just reiterate the point that this was the same army that 3 years ago dropped their weapons and ran, essentially. I mean, many of them were also terribly brutally executed by Daesh when Daesh had overrun Iraqi towns and cities 3 summers ago. So tell me, what was the major difference in this Iraqi army-led operation between this one and the one 3 years ago that ran away when Daesh came? And Daesh wasn't very strong back then when they came and took over, and these guys abandoned their posts. What's the main difference?
In my perspective, there is no main differences, in fact, but I think the circumstances now is different. the same security forces who were controlling on the cities in Iraq were subjected to bad propaganda from the political parties, some regional powers, to discredit the Iraqi security forces and create a gap between the population and the Iraqi security forces. Therefore, Iraqi security forces looks like they were operating in a very hostile areas like Mosul, Tikrit, or Ramadi, and they were unwelcomed by the population. Now, after the population have seen the horrendous treatment of Daesh, they realized that thus Daesh wasn't, or those terrorist groups are not representing them, and they are treating them very bad, and therefore they needed to be liberated by the Iraqi security forces. Yes, it was a collapse. It was really, I could say, a domino collapse effects for the Iraqi security forces at that time. But restoring the capabilities and building the capabilities was, a needed time to restore the confidence in themselves, restore the confidence of the population on the Iraqi security forces. Otherwise, the federal police, the Iraqi army divisions, the counterterrorism forces, Peshmerga, all of them are alike, the same elements who were at 2014, who fought today in Mosul.
Mm-hmm. Now, undoubtedly, this is a brutal enemy. Just over the weekend, we saw pictures of a woman cradling a baby who then blew herself up and killed those who were coming into Mosul trying to liberate the city, as well as other civilians surrounding her. Daesh is egregious. It is disgusting. It fits many definitions of evil for many people. But on the other side of the coin, many civilians were also killed in this operation, from the air and on the ground. Does it sadden you that so many innocent civilians were killed in this operation to oust Daesh from Mosul?
Yes, I just want to reiterate and emphasize on one reality. Daesh wasn't designed to capture the ground for a long time and establish their own state to be recognized by the international community. And therefore, it was initially, from the beginning, and basically was expected that ISIS will be removed and will be not survived for a long time. And many expected that it would be earlier than three years to stay in Mosul or in Ramadi or other areas in Iraq. But because of the political dispute in the region, it's between the world powers and the regional powers on the status or the end state of the Syrian presidency was giving them a chance, an opportunity to stay longer than expected. However, ISIS also, from this war, has accomplished what they intended in fact, the huge destruction, the casualties that have been inflicted on the civilians and the Iraqi security forces, the losses and the casualties and the damages and the cities that they have controlled. It's really also magnificent, and that needed attention from the Iraqi government as well as the international community to restore everything in order to completely eradicate ISIS. Is not only achieve the military victory over ISIS. It needs multiple efforts, multiple strategies and support to complete the mission. It's counter the ideology is part of that strategy. Counter the flowing the money and recruiting to this horrendous.
So allow me to come in there.
Also required.
Yeah. Okay. So you can bomb or kill fighters, but it's more difficult to bomb or kill a bad idea, and that bad idea continues to generate itself. When people are squeezed or oppressed, they're easier to recruit, right? Now, I want to go into some of Iraq's recent history. We have Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International, Der Spiegel reports. Even the Prime Minister, Haider al-Abadi, has criticized Shia militias and others with a sectarian bent within the Iraqi security forces who have hurt, who have killed, who have injured, who have humiliated many innocent Sunni civilians. Do you believe that the Iraqi system right now, the government and the security forces, actually have a plan to ensure that this doesn't repeat itself over and over again, because there seems to be a sectarianism built into the authority at the moment that's generating a lot of terrorism? Would you agree with that?
I really would like to draw your attention and everybody's attention that Iraqi government is, or Iraq as a whole, configured as specified as a fragile state, and government cannot control on each and every part of the country, and they cannot make oversee also every part of the country, and therefore it's the fragility of the government to impose order, law. It's also part of what I am, bringing on the table.
Okay, but then let me come in there, right, and tell you that when I spoke to Iraqi lawmaker Saad al-Muttalibi, so this is not somebody who has good intentions, who's saying that he's trying to impose some sort of law and order, but they can't control militias, right? When I interviewed him about Daesh, he said, when we catch a member of Daesh, when we catch someone on the battlefield, we kill them. This is what he told me on this very program, right? So these were suspects. These weren't people that you arrest and you try. He was talking about executing suspects, right? And he laughed about it when I asked if this was contravening the Geneva Conventions. So again, I'm asking you, is there an attitude that might down the line make things worse and lead to the rise of things that are far worse than Daesh, maybe?
Umran, we are an Eastern conservative, tribal society, and you understand what I mean. That there are many people now in Mosul, inside Mosul, who has been tortured, who has been killed. Their families are now looking for ISIS or Daesh elements to revenge from them. And that's, you cannot control if the government has no power on each and every part, has no system to control on this kind of, individual acts. It's really going to be very tough on the Iraqi government to restore the orders and, try every, fighter and every soldier who has committed a crime against humanity, or because it's at the end of the day, it's not a systematic violation to the law, because it's a soldier in the operation in the battlefield is subjected to the emotional effects, and that's really the cornerstone on how we need a professional, good training forces to treat the civilians. The second issue which I feel that it's a huge challenge in front of the Iraqi security forces and the Iraqi government is the uncontrolled weapons, the uncontrolled groups who are not, subjected to or submitted to the Iraqi government, and they don't want to be part of the Iraqi security forces. That what you call the Shia militias. In fact, some of them, if you say that we have to distinguish between the Hashd al-Shabi, which are totally submitted to the Iraqi government, and those groups who do not want to be part of the Iraqi government. Or they would, pretend they are part of the Iraqi government. So Iraqi government will have lots of challenges in the front. How they will, tackle this kind of challenges, this is the question in front of the Iraq government. I don't think so Iraq government is capable by itself to tackle this challenge. They need the international community to support. They need regional powers to understand stability, security of Iraq is part of their stability and security.
Retired Brigadier General in the Iraqi Army, Ismail Sudani, thank you very much for talking to us.
Thank you very much, Imran.